Okay, I think we are live, and if we are, I'll be able to see in my monitor shortly. For anyone who's out there right now, hang tight. We're getting everything underway, and I wanted to give you all something to just kind of think about. If you haven't seen this already, this is an image of a guy somewhere in China, I imagine, at a phone shop who rushed out to get his battery replaced, because we all know that not having a battery that's charged up is going to make your phone go slower. So he decided that he wanted to make sure this was a legitimate battery. And to do that, his method was to take a bite out of it. And as you can see on the left-hand side of the screen there, it didn't end well for him. So please, whatever you do, people, don't bite your battery. What a freaking weird thing to do. I just don't get it. All right. So, hey, it's Mike from Go Cell Phone Repair, and this is the Thursday night, 6 p.m. live stream. And I'm very excited this evening because we have a guest on with us. I'm going to introduce him shortly. By the way, anyone who's in the chat there, if you are listening to this and you get any echo or any funny sounds, please let me know. If we're lagging, you know the routine. Throw something there in the chat and we will get it taken care of. Tonight, we have Gregg from Greggles TV. So Gregg has a tech channel where he talks all about phone stuff. I thought that was more than appropriate for us. We fix phones, we work on phones, and let's be honest, all of us use them. So without any further ado, I'd like to introduce you to Gregg. Say hello, Gregg.
What is going on, everybody? Good to be on the show, Mike. Thanks for having me.
Hey, Gregg, I was watching your channel earlier today, and my take on it is this. You are up to the minute on tech stuff. I mean, everything that happens, you know, that's a big headline, you're pretty much talking about that daily, right?
Yeah, I think that's what I try to differentiate myself versus others, is that, you know, a lot of these other people, you know, like, you know, Android Authority or Android Police or whoever, they have a whole big team, and it takes them, they probably have to get things passed through management and all these other different layers to get videos up before they can just do it. I'm a one-man shop, so I can do whatever I want, whenever I want. And if I have the time, I'm going to post that video, hopefully before someone else, so that they'll come see me and hopefully like my content and subscribe.
You know, I love the fact that we live in a day and age where, you know, we were talking before the broadcast, everyone, about how old I am. And, you know, back in the day, and if you talk to your grandparents, a lot of times they'll ask you if you read the paper, you know, what time does the paper come to the door? And there was a time not that long ago, you know, all things considered, in the grand scheme of things, where you didn't get your information until at least the next day. And sometimes it was longer than that. And number one, to be able to get it almost instantaneously. And number two, the thing that I am a huge proponent for, and that is for allowing people who have that information or who have talent or who have entertainment value to reach such a wide audience. So Gregg, I applaud what you're doing. I think it's great, man. I love to be able to just go to YouTube, click play, and I get my news in what, 5-10 minutes at the most. I'm up to date, and I'm never going to see this stuff on broadcast TV. Like, nobody ever comes on and says, well, we're waiting for the Galaxy S9, and here's a feature that was, you know, kind of leaked out and we're finding out about, but you're on top of all that stuff. So
yeah, sometimes I'll notice that I'm honestly sometimes 2 or even 3 days ahead of some of these other bigger channels that, you know, they just take that much time to get this content out. So it's pretty cool that I can get the content out so quick.
I love it, man. It is an exciting time to live in. Hey, what is up, Harvey? Good to see you here. Everything Tech. Guys, I'm going to put Gregg's link in the chat here a few times so that throughout the broadcast, anyone who jumps on here or wants to check out, you know, get some context as far as who we are talking to, there's a link to his channel. I encourage you to go check it out. Hit the subscribe button. You know, nowadays, one thing that you can do to help out anyone on YouTube is, you know, not only give them an upvote if you like what you're seeing, but also subscribe to their channel. That definitely helps us out in the rankings. And, you know, at this point in time, YouTube's kind of getting a little funny about stuff. So we really never know what to expect. And we want to make sure that if you like what you see, you communicate that to everyone. So appreciate that, guys. I'm always happy. Johnny Chang, how you doing, man? Good to see you as well. I am always happy that you guys show up on here. You know, honestly, every time I get ready to do a stream, I feel like I'm just going to hang out with my friends. And tonight we wanted to do something a little different. So you see, no fancy backgrounds, no green screen, nothing like that. Just some conversation going on, which I love to hear your comments and see what you're talking about. Gregg, I do have kind of a related question for you. Greggle. Yes. Should I just guess? Is Greggle, is that like a nickname, or where did that come from?
Yeah. So I never really had a nickname growing up when I was younger. And then when I met my wife, she started calling me like Greggles, and it kind of just stuck. And then I don't know, I was thinking of a channel name, and I was like, hell, I'll just do Greggles TV. I was just going to do Greggles, then I noticed some other people there's like some other people out there called Greggles. I think there's even like an actor or something in Europe or in England or something called Greggles that's somewhat famous. So I chose Greggles TV, even though no one, the youngins don't watch TV anymore. But yeah. So I don't know. That's how I kind of got it. It's a nickname from my wife.
Well, I can tell you, as far as I'm concerned, you're more famous than any European actor because I can't think of one named Greggles. So we'll put in there. No worries. So I see you've got you got some equipment set up there in the background. Is this where you do your live stream from right there in that room?
Yeah, it's where I do all my business, all my adult shoots, and I'm just kidding.
This is a funny thing, man. I've got all this very innocent photography stuff set up in my room, and every time someone comes over and sees the tripod and the lights, they're like, "What are you guys doing back here?" I'm making videos about phones. Come on.
Yeah, actually, this is my office. So I have my main camera that I always use. I have my TV. If I'm going to do like screen capturing, all my video game systems are under this TV, and then obviously my computer's really close by. I have another desk over here that has just a bunch of crap on it that I need to put away that, companies have sent me that I've reviewed. Then I have I have a closet over here that has more crap. And then I've already reviewed and done. And then I have a couch over here. And then back here, I got my Hue lights and a little desk for my printer. And that's the office.
You never have enough room to store your crap. I know.
Exactly.
A couple things when it comes to channel names, this is just real quick. I kind of pigeonholed myself here. When I came up with Go Cell Phone Repair, I was all about doing repairs on phones, and that was it. And then, as you mentioned, vendors start saying, "Hey, do you want to review this? Do you want to review that?" And then I want to do live streams and all sorts of other stuff. And, to have my channel name be Repair, it's kind of like that's what people expect when they get here. So,
yeah,
honestly, man, I'm thinking about changing it. I know that's probably not a move that some people commend.
I think that's a great idea to change it, especially if you're not doing that anymore. I mean, when you sent me an email to say, "Hey, do you want to be on the show? I'd love to interview you." I thought that's all you did. So then when I looked at some of your stuff, I mean, some of it's, I guess you could push towards repair, but generally, maybe try to come up with a different name. I don't know. It's definitely confusing. Just like Greggles TV. I mean, what the hell is Greggles TV?
It's a challenging thing to come up with a new name for sure.
Yeah, it definitely is.
All right. So obviously the big thing right now, I think on many people's minds, and I didn't even ask you this before the broadcast, and I would pose this question also to everyone that's in the chat. If we could get a head count, I'm curious to know, Gregg, iOS, Android, what's in your pocket? What's your daily driver?
Always Android. It's right now I'm using the Pixel 2. I can't lift it up high enough because I didn't charge it today. It's right here. I use the Pixel 2 XL. And generally always Android. And then for phone wise though, I usually upgrade every major phone that comes out. So when the S9 Plus comes out, I'll upgrade to that and probably stop using the Pixel. And then I would get the next phone after that would probably be maybe like a OnePlus.
Okay, so
or something, possibly.
The Pixel 2 is the one with like the best camera in the world, pretty much, right?
Yeah, correct. Yeah, I mean, it's not even that I take a lot of photos, but yeah, it's like one of definitely the selling points. But I think this might dive into one of your questions, but later on. But I like phones that are just smooth. Like I don't need a phone that has like a heart rate sense monitor. I really don't care about that. I don't use it on the Samsung phones. Like I generally just use it to take photos. Use it for day-to-day actions like texting and messaging and websites and just stupid apps. I don't play any games really. So, and I want good battery life, and it does all of that really well. And a lot of phones do that well now at this point, especially on Android. I feel like back in the day, especially when I first got into Android, it wasn't so much like that. Android, the apps were really ugly, especially coming from iOS at that time. iOS really just felt rock solid in terms of the way the apps looked and performed. In Android, I felt like it was almost like playing with like B-rated software. It didn't look and play as well. So, but it's different now. I feel like, or maybe I've just been on Android too long, but I feel like Android's now at that level that they can compete with iPhone in that, and it's just as beautiful, and if not more beautiful, the apps and the software, definitely the software. And I think the way that Android makes their software, especially vanilla Android, it's awesome. I think it looks really good.
Yeah, I go back and forth because obviously, I deal with customers, so I kind of need to know have a basic understanding of how all these operating systems work. But you know what? I want to save the Galaxy S9 real quick and jump over here to the chat, because I had asked a question and we're getting some responses here. First of all, Kodak, welcome to the show. I'm glad to see you back. iPhone 10 discontinued. Is that a rumor, or is that like your prediction, or is that something that's solid now? Because we've been hearing about, they're talking about discontinuing the iPhone 10 and then basically just rolling out a new model later on in the year.
Exactly. I know you're not asking me that question, but that's exactly what it is. Everyone keeps talking about the iPhone X is getting discontinued. It's going to just have a new model. They'll still have the same iPhone X or whatever they call it, XI or XA, X, whatever they call it. It's going to be the same thing basically, but just newer internals. Gotcha.
Let's see. Real World, what's up? Good to see you here. Kazin12345 iOS. So there's an iOS. Johnny Chang says Android in my pocket now with old HTC Desire 601. What? The Desire 601, dude. That's crazy. Oh, it's a replacement after you busted the J7 perks. Carl says iOS. Harvey, iPhone SE. I dislike large phones. I don't blame you. I got a whole topic we can go into on that. Everything Tech says I pick Android. If you can't tell from my profile pic, and that should be a clue. Let's see. The Duke Tech Consumer. Greggles TV.
He's just coming. He's coming from my channel. Okay, Everything cool. Tech and Duke are coming from my channel.
Gotcha. All right, well, guys, I'm glad you could join us. I'm really excited to have Gregg on. So this is going to be a lot of fun. Now, what we were talking about earlier, because there's always so much kind of conjecture, there's rumors, and then enough of these companies, I think, purposely leak information about what's coming out pretty soon. Anything in your opinion, Gregg, that we should be super excited about seeing? I don't know. Let's see if someone wanted to buy another phone in the next month or two.
For any new devices coming out, you mean?
Yeah, as far as new technology. As far as, I shouldn't have said in a month or two, but we know the Galaxy S9 is right around the corner, so that's going to be the big one. And I know you were talking about what did you say just a second ago that you're looking forward to getting for yourself? Was the OnePlus 3?
5, 6 actually. So I think I've kind of talked about this on my channel, but the newest, I think, exciting technology coming out for phones that for this year, and it's already out on one of the Chinese phones, is the fingerprint sensor underneath the display. So you wouldn't have an actual hardware piece on the back of your phone or at the bottom. It would be embedded under the display. So that's the most exciting, most futuristic thing that's coming out or is out. And it's not really out for any American phones, but it will be this year. Rumors are it's going to start with the OnePlus 6, and then the S9 won't have it. And then there's rumors that the Note 9 might have it, but I assume we'll see it in more phones towards the end of the year in America.
Okay, and the Vivo is the company that actually has that technology at the moment. Okay, and I would be surprised if they didn't have some sort of patent on that. That would have to be acquired in order to at least use the same technology that they have.
I don't believe so. There's multiple companies creating it. Synaptics has it. I forget who else. Someone else has it too, but it's not that they. So like when Samsung uses it, I'm almost positive they're using Synaptics. So they're not creating it themselves. They're just licensing it from Synaptics.
Gotcha. Okay. Now, from the technical or from a technician's perspective, I want to share something with you and with anyone else who doesn't take phones apart for fun or for a living, and that is we have for a long time been living with this dark cloud looming, and it is exactly what you just described, and I'll explain why. So when the iPhone 10 came out, we were, 90% convinced they were going to have that technology built into the screen until they started talking about using facial recognition instead. And the reason that this was important to us, and I think it might be to consumers as well, is, as you might imagine, one of the most common repairs that we perform are to replace broken screens on cell phones. So if we're dealing with someone outside of Apple, because obviously, most major metropolitan areas have access to an Apple store where they can replace and repair phones if necessary. If there's a part that we can't take care of, there's always an Apple store that people can go to. If you have anything that's not under that brand, and they do something that we've kind of been worried about for a while, and that is matching the fingerprint technology under the screen to the logic board inside the phone. So do you remember when the iPhone 5S had the problem where if the fingerprint reader got replaced by a third-party part, your phone didn't work anymore?
I don't remember that.
Okay,
no.
so there was this thing called Error 53. And what Apple had, and Apple changes their position on this stuff, you know, so I give them credit for that. But at one point in time, if your fingerprint scanner on your iPhone 5S was damaged, you could not use your phone anymore until you replaced it. The catch to that was you could not replace that fingerprint scanner with a third-party replacement part. It had to come directly from the Apple store, because that fingerprint technology, the security, what they call the secure enclave, was actually built into the fingerprint button itself. So if I was to put one on there that wasn't from Apple and it wasn't matched,
it would reject it.
Your phone wouldn't work. And worse than that, when it updated, or if you connected it to iTunes, you'd get something called Error 53, which basically meant your phone was bricked. You were done. You could not make a phone call at all. So Apple realized that that was a bad move, because there are some people in the world who don't live down the street from an Apple store. So you know, if you update your phone and suddenly it stops working, you just don't have a phone. What we were thinking is that if they were to build the fingerprint recognition into the screen, and remember, the screen is like a very common repair. You know, people break their screens all the time. Yeah. If your screen stops working on your phone, and in order to get your phone working again to replace that screen, you have to go to the manufacturer. That's going to put a lot of people in a very difficult position, not just the repair shops, but the customers themselves. Like, let's say you buy, who did you say you thought would be using that next? OnePlus. So let's say you have a OnePlus device, you break your screen, the digitizer is no longer operational, or the LCD or AMOLED is completely busted, and you need to get it replaced. You can't go to a third party. Yeah. If it's a necessity for the screen to be matched to the phone, that means your only option is to go to OnePlus to get your phone repaired. And
which is scary, because they don't have local shops out here. Like, you know, Samsung is always affiliated with the carriers, and they're located in America. OnePlus does have repair centers, I believe, in America, but nothing you can just drive to. So I think it kind of goes, the way I look at it is kind of the way, you know, when the phones started getting curved displays, and those are basically, if they break, you generally have to go back to your, if you can correct me if I'm wrong, but you generally have to go back to, you know, the cell phone carrier you bought it from, or directly to Samsung or whoever else the manufacturer is, and get it replaced. And then people get insurance. So I think if anything, this is going to create a bigger market for cell phone insurance than it already is. Like, I don't believe in cell phone insurance, but I know some people do. It's just, I think that's what it's going to create a bigger market for, is cell phone insurance.
Well, just to clarify on your question there, we actually do replace the curved screens on the Galaxy phones. So that is I would say, a significant part of our business, not the majority. And one of the reasons is that the cost on those displays is outrageous. When someone comes in and wants to get their phone fixed, what's that?
It's like $300 or $400 or something like that.
Yeah, that's just our cost to acquire the part. So when you add $50 labor to that or whatever, the customers will generally say, "Well, when is my upgrade?" Because, you know, I mean, when you buy a Galaxy phone with a curved display, what you're paying for the most part, is the display itself. That's where the majority of the manufacturing cost comes in, at least at this point in time. So, I wish I could disagree, but to a large extent, you're correct on that. When it gets to those displays, for us to replace them, it's a very difficult thing to do, which, you know, is kind of a bummer for us, because that's what we do for a living. And replacing LCDs used to be a lot easier, screens in general, than they are now.
Is that your job? I don't. I know you have cell phone repair, but is that your actual job, cell phone repair?
Yeah, my actual job is to repair cell phones. So I do a few things. I repair phones. I do training. I train technicians to repair phones, and then obviously I do my YouTube stuff. But that's my workbench right behind me. This is where I fix phones, and then my family has a couple stores, so I work with them also in retail once in a while.
So another question for you. So what worries you about cell phone repair with any phones that are new? Is it the fingerprint sensor underneath the display? Like, what worries about you guys possibly losing business because of the way cell phones are turning out to be?
Well, the main thing that I think most of us are concerned with right now is not really you know, we can source the parts. We can get the information that we need to perform the repairs. And in many cases, and I know this is going to sound like I'm plugging myself, but in many cases, we offer the customer a better alternative than they have from the manufacturer. Okay. So I'm not here to pitch that, but just to give you an example, if your phone gets wet, no company in the world that produces cell phones is going to repair that phone for you. Okay. They're going to say you need to replace it, you need to upgrade, you need to do whatever. A lot of what we do is board level repairs where we remove the PCB from the phone. We figure out which parts are bad, which parts are incomplete. We fix those so that the phone gets going again. And in many cases, the reason that people see that as a better alternative is because the information on the phone tends to be far more valuable than the phone itself. Yeah. So instead of a replacement, a lot of people want that actual repair. But to answer your question, what I think should be of the most concern to people right now is, one, the fact that Apple has such a huge market share that they can almost dictate the direction that technology goes. I think that's one concern. The second concern would be on a technical level, and that is the way that they're manufacturing the inside of the phones now has become more challenging, to say the least, as far as how we go to work on them. And I don't want to go into too much detail on that, but if you haven't seen it, there's a video that shows the board, the motherboard inside of the iPhone 10, and it's actually a sandwich design. So in order to save space, and because they had so many problems with phones bending, if you remember the whole bend gate thing with the 6 Plus, well, that problem is now happening with the iPhone 6s. It's also happening with the iPhone 7, not to the same degree as it did with the 6 Plus, but the way that their phones were designed, the logic board went the entire length of the phone, and it's also screwed down in every single spot, like from here to here. So when your phone gets bent, it places excessive stress on the components that are on the inside of it. Well, what Apple did is they took their logic board and they basically folded it in half. So now it's a sandwich design with, you know, basically 4 layers of components. And just to get that thing apart requires desoldering, like, I don't know, probably 100 different points that go around the edge of it. So that kind of concerns me because they're making it difficult to service their phones. Samsung is going to be introducing SLP on their boards in the Galaxy S9, at least that's the rumor. And if that happens, that means the components are even smaller and closer together. So I'm probably going to trail off into a bunch of technical stuff here. But I guess the short answer would be, if manufacturers design things that aren't serviceable, you know, if they say, look, we're going to make this, we're going to design something in a way so that if you damage it, that's it. It's a disposable part. The more disposable parts that are installed in phones, the less incentive or the less ability that anyone has to recover them. You know, the sustainability of phones in general comes down to having options for repair rather than just replacement.
Yeah.
So let me jump over here to the chat again, Greg. As a challenge, I've been trying to keep up with like every comment that comes in until they just start, you know, flying by. So let's see what we got. Where were we? Johnny Chang says he is experiencing lag, and Everything Tech says your side. So hopefully that's not us. That's awesome.
Your fault, Johnny, dude, not ours.
Sorry, Johnny, but I am relieved that we're not lagging because, man, I've been struggling with my ISP. Let's see. I do remember ruined 2 phones before I found out what Apple did. I stopped fixing them until I knew what the heck was happening. What's up, Forbes Tech Reviews? Oh, we got another tech review channel here. Forbes Tech Reviews, Everything Tech. This is what I was thinking. Repairability. I'm probably a little behind there. Samsung doesn't charge huge bucks like Apple to replace their screens. Beha, what's going on? Beha is also in the phone repair business. Just opened a new store in Stockton. Hope that's rocking by now. Real World Review. We should move back to cheap phones. The BlackBerry Z10 screens cost about 10 to 15 bucks for the part. Man, you remember BlackBerry? Oh, that was fun. I saw a dude in Costco the other day on a flip phone, and I'm not kidding. I love it, man. I was just telling Greg, I lived through the flip phone days. That's how old I am. I had a flip phone. I had a DPC 550. That was like the second phone I ever owned. And you know what's crazy to me? That thing was indestructible. The DPC 550, the old school thick phone from Motorola, we had a Motorola rep come out to pitch us on their product, and that thing supposedly is constructed of the same materials that NFL makes their helmets out of. So he would slam this thing up against a wall. You could hammer a nail with it. and the thing would not break. What happened to that durability? It's all about ergonomics and appearance now. Nobody makes anything that's just indestructible. That's so crazy. Have you fixed the iPhone 8 yet? John Cassidy, how are you doing? I have not fixed one. I have seen several of them fixed. It is no more difficult than the 7. In fact, I would say it's maybe even easier. But Jerry Rick Everything did his bend test and they passed. Yeah. You know, I have slight issue with bend and drop tests in the respect that they're not exactly scientific. I mean, it does give us an idea of what to expect from a phone, but I think we need something more than just someone bending phones by hand to really know exactly how durable they are. But you know, there's also limitations to how hard someone can push on a phone. Try sitting on a phone in your back pocket. You can get a little more leverage that way, I think, depending on your size, of course. Duke, is he really strong as he looks? Huh? What?
I think they're talking about Jerry Rig.
Oh, okay. Zach. I actually talked to Zach. He's a really cool guy. He's out in Utah, I want to say. What were your impressions back when Samsung changed design from the S6 on the S6 from the S5?
Oh, because they got more. It looked more like modern and sleek and stuff.
Anything else that sticks out to you, Greg, as far as big changes from the S5 to the S6? You know, as a phone reviewer, consumer, user.
I can't remember if I had the S5. If I did, it was like for like a couple of weeks. It was plastic. I didn't like it. That's what I remember. I'm looking at pictures of it now. I didn't like it. It felt laggy to me. I liked the camera. It felt that the software was laggy. The design of it felt cheap, if I remember. It had like a leathery back feeling to it.
Yeah.
And then the S6, I think, was either a metal or glass design.
S6 is glass front and back. I still have my S6.
Yeah.
Here.
Okay. I remember. I can't even remember if I had the S6 or S6 Edge. I don't remember, but I know. Like the one thing about Samsung phones that I hated was they were laggy all the way up to the Note 7, Note 8. First phone I ever had from Samsung didn't lag at all. S8 lagged very small amount, but the Note 8 was zero lag. So I have very high hopes for the future for Samsung.
Okay. You know, from my position, the one thing that kind of killed on the S6 for me was no more removable battery. And I agree with you completely on the design. The S6 looked so much cleaner and more sleek and smooth than the S5. But to have a phone where you can just pop the back off and change the battery out, I loved having that option.
Yeah.
And I understand why, but you know, after phones started blowing up, I'm wondering if anyone is rethinking that whole idea of always making it nearly impossible to access the battery without special tools and equipment.
Yeah, I don't think anyone's ever. I mean, who knows what time's going to do, but I can't imagine anyone's going to have another replaceable battery phone. I can't imagine it.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think LG was the last major manufacturer that did, right?
Yes, I believe so. And the only way I can see it maybe going that way is if they have some kind of ejection system where you can eject the battery, whatever, from the side or the bottom or something, and that do something like that instead of you know what I mean? Like almost like a cartridge.
Yeah.
But other than that, I can't imagine them ever doing anything like they did in the past.
Well, the standard now is being set at water resistant IP67, right? So it's going to be difficult for anyone to approach that with a removable battery, unfortunately, because I'd love to have that option, but I agree, man. I don't think it's coming back.
For sure.
Let's see. The man, probably as old as Mike. So the DPC was made out of a thick plastic. Oh, yeah, dude. It was killer. I'm telling you. I thought that was the coolest thing in the world when I had my flip phone. StarTAC. I had a StarTAC. Johnny Chang. You would not believe this. I was an account executive for what is now Verizon at the time, and when those things were released, believe it or not, everyone gets excited about this $1,000 iPhone 10, right? Did you know that the StarTAC, the very first version, and it was analog phone when it was released, $1,800. That's how much that phone cost at the time. This is 95, I want to say, maybe 96. $1,800. So they broke that $1,000 barrier a long time ago, and then they quickly. This is the big difference. They quickly dropped down to $1,300, and I want to say within a year they were down at about $300 to $400, which back then was a deal on a phone like that.
Yeah, it was. I remember. Yeah, I remember getting flip phones back then that were. I never paid what you just said, but it was more like $300 for like a Kia Sarah or whatever, some other crappy phone.
Before they did the free with activation thing, I would imagine.
Yeah, yeah. I didn't even get free. My first. What was it? So my first cell phone plan was 200 minutes, and I think you got like free after 7 p.m. and then nice weekends were free as well.
What was your very first phone?
I don't remember. I just remember I always wanted like a Razor. I never got a Razor. I had Kia Ceras, I had LGs. I don't remember the models though. I had Verizon, but it was called something else back then. And I grew up in Boston. I can't remember what they were called back then either.
Okay, I am trying to get this image if I can. Let's see. Can we open this in the browser? I'm actually on this old cell phone page, and I had this Sony with the little flip-up earpiece. Oh, there it is. Okay, let's see if we can put this on the chat so everyone can see what I'm talking about. This right here, this was my very first cell phone. Okay, this is the Sony CMH333, and if you push that little earpiece up, that's how you could answer the call. And if you push the earpiece down, it would end the call. And man, I thought I was the coolest guy in the world, man, with that thing. And that was before my flip phone.
It looks like a home wireless phone from back in the day.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it?
The bottom part does.
Got my cordless phone there. Yeah. Let's see, where were we? StarTAC or Motorola Razr. The S5 was a good phone. I liked it more than the S7. Hated the phone. I haven't used an S7 for an extended period of time yet. Note 8 is legit. I think the S6 and the Night 7 were the best of Samsung history. Are there as many problems with phone batteries being bad over time besides Apple? Yeah, I think lithium-ion technology in general has a long ways to come, John. And this was one of the things where I kind of mentioned this to Gregg earlier, and this is going to give away my answer. But I wanted to ask everyone who's in the stream if there was something that a manufacturer could do to improve on smartphones in general. Like if you said, hey, this is the one feature that I want on my next phone. This is going to make me change from Android to iOS or from iOS to Android, or, I'll even dump both of those and jump onto some other, operating system. If my manufacturer just gives me this one feature, and I'm going to tell you right now, mine is this. Guys, start putting some R&D into batteries. All this fancy stuff that phones do now is great. It's lovely. I always talk about how much I love wireless charging, but you know what? I would ditch that and about 20 other options in a second if you made a battery that lasted like a BlackBerry did. I don't know if you ever used an old school BlackBerry, Gregg, but even the BlackBerry Curve or the BlackBerry Bold, you could turn that phone on and leave it in standby for at least a week. No problem.
That's like iPhones, though. I noticed when I was testing the iPhone X, I left it on the desk for a while, and the thing didn't die. But yeah, I'm with you. I think battery technology, battery usage, not even so much battery like standby, but battery, just being able to use the phone. Like I don't know why they don't make bigger. I wouldn't care if my phone was thicker. Make it a little bit thicker and give me 2 days of battery life.
Here's the thing, man. And Real World actually made a video recently showing how this is a detriment, having this camera bump on the back.
Yeah.
Could we just make the phone seriously like 1/10 of a millimeter thicker and have a smooth back? It wouldn't bother me at all.
Well, that's iPhone's problem. You have an iPhone. That's an iPhone, right?
That's iPhone. That's Galaxy. Here's an S6 with the same thing.
Yeah, but the new ones aren't like that.
They don't have it?
No.
Okay, well,
I didn't hear you answer. You asked everybody else. What is your phone of choice?
Well, right now I'm using my phone of choice is the one that's not broken, and that would be my iPhone 7. So that's what I'm using at the moment.
Okay.
My S6 was my choice, and I broke the screen. And I'm kind of in a position where it doesn't really make sense to fix it because of the diminished, value of the phone itself. Exactly. And I've been holding out for a while. The things that I want in a phone will probably never all be packaged into the same device at once. I loved having my infrared blaster on this phone. I controlled everything in my house with the remote in my phone. Mm-hmm. And I don't use it all the time, but I like to have a 3.5 millimeter headset jack, and it doesn't take up that much room. So I would like to retain that feature. I also love wireless charging. Those three things in one package in a phone that doesn't suck, because there are some phones out there that have all that stuff, but they're not great phones.
Right.
That's what would sell me. I'd buy that in a minute. You know, if it wasn't a phone that had a battery that lasted a week, I'd take that over any of the above probably.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, Samsung's the closest thing, but they don't have the IR blaster anymore.
Yeah, this is what kills me about Samsung. I like them, but I always get this sneaking suspicion that they're going too far out of their way to copy what Apple's doing. And I would love it for them to just keep doing their own thing and making great phones and not try to do the same thing that Apple does, you know, and not follow suit. Like they got rid of a headset jack. So what? You don't have to do that.
Yeah. Samsung tries to, I agree. They try to do what Apple does, and then they try to do what they want to do too at the same time. So I think they try to do too much sometimes. They are keeping the headphone jack on the new phones as well.
I saw that.
So I would guess this is the last year they do that. I don't think they'll do it on the S10. And that's just because Apple, you're right. Like you said earlier, Apple rules the market. Whatever Apple does, everybody follows suit, unfortunately. But you know what? These last year or two is one of the first years I have iPhone friends that are like thinking of switching over, or they did switch over and they like the Android side and they're staying with Android. So I think that there's cracks in Apple's armor. And I think it's only a matter of time before, you know, more people try out the Pixel phone and the new Galaxy phones and whatever other phones that are out there. But I think a good phone for a really good phone for iPhone people to go to and just, you know, where they can customize it, but also get that clean feel to it is the Pixel side. And I'm glad that Google has that. And that's the phone, and the camera is great. So I think that's the phone that can potentially steal everybody over from iPhone. That's
awesome, man. My position has always been this. I would love it if fewer people looked at it as this versus that, you know, sign up for this team or the other. Why don't we just continue to be demanding consumers and say, here's what we want, not I'm choosing side, you know, team Apple or team Android or team Samsung, and I'm going to argue about how good my brand is. It's not my brand. You know, the way I see it, I feel like the company should be serving us. Rather than trying to say, here's what we have, you're going to like it. How about listen to the customers? I know that's a lot to ask. Hey, real quick, everyone, for anyone who just joined the chat, I do want to mention this again. This is Gregg from Greggles TV, and I'm going to put his link in the chat. You should absolutely check out his channel. He is one of the hardest working men on YouTube from what I've seen. This guy is on it every single day talking tech. So if you want to get up-to-the-minute updates on what's going on with phones and technology, you should definitely check out his channel. Also, I want to go back here because I'm starting to get behind on the comments here real quick. Let's see. In fact, can I scroll up? Here we go. The S5 was good. The Note is legit. I went a little too far there. Okay, I never use the S5 much. That's going way back. Realized it was a major flop because they made it water resistant. They ruined the loudspeaker because of that. Yeah, it also wasn't really very water resistant once you broke that tab down on the charge port either, right? Radio Shack had an $800 phone in 1989. I think the first cell phones that came out were probably very expensive. I know the plans were, just because the technology was so new. The Duke Tech customer says, I'm glad that you like the S7. Oh, he's talking to Everything Tech. I'm getting into other people's conversations here. Sorry about that, man. Didn't mean
Duke does that. He always starts his own conversation.
That's cool. I want to make sure that we address any comments or questions that come toward us here. Let's see. Note 3 was best. Well, you know, it sounds like we have a lot of Android users on the chat tonight. Just found my S6 and it's turning on. I lost it a week ago. Congrats. Does the camera sensor of smartphones have any unique identification with the phone itself intrinsically? Not to my knowledge, Johnny, and I assume that you're asking about the iPhone 10. And my understanding, and from what I've seen, you can swap out even, I'm sorry. No, actually the camera sensor, the part that is used for Face ID is paired to the board. So if you break the screen on the iPhone 10, you do have to transfer all of the hardware from the display, just like you would a fingerprint scanner. So that is, in fact, married to the logic board, and only Apple has the Horizon machine and select dealers apparently that can match those two together. Let's see, have I read before that the imaging sensors has unique manufacturing defects that make them identifiable among any sensor? I wouldn't be too surprised if any new form factor from any company has some manufacturing defects, because that's usually what seems to happen when a new phone is rushed out, and they always are. Beha, I remember before the StarTAC, and they had Motorola two-way pagers. Bro, you must be as old as me. Motorola two-way pagers. I remember when we had, actually before Motorola, we had beepers, man. We didn't even have two-way. Everyone remembers the Sidekick. That was like the next evolution of two-way pagers practically. It was more like a pager with a phone built into it. Man, those were great. Not fun to work on. Example of the check scanning deposit feature of any bank must require such a feature. Yeah, I don't know too much about that, Johnny. I know that on the iPhone 10, they're married to the board, but as far as that stuff, I would assume that the security feature, they probably have the option of building it into the reader or into the phone itself. And I hope I'm answering your question correctly. I think that's an option by the manufacturer. And this is one of the biggest differences that we saw when we talk about the whole Error 53 and the fingerprint scanner issue, was that Apple builds the security into the fingerprint scanner down here on the bottom, whereas Samsung built a fingerprint scanner into the phone, but all of the software that was important was actually in the phone itself. So if you change out this button, to this day is not a problem. So I'm not sure why they chose to go that direction, but it certainly complicates things for the customers and the repair shops. Lower cost to customers. Hardware customization. They just need modular phones. The funny thing about that, Greg, do you remember when they were talking about launching this phone where you can kind of build it yourself and upgrade yourself?
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Modular parts. And I'm not sure what happened to that, but it looks like it didn't catch on.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea, but it's like, are people? It's just like a PC. You can upgrade your PC all day long for a long period of time, but do people actually? Do the majority of people actually do it? No. So I mean, would they do that with a cell phone? If it was easy, maybe, but it has to be cost effective. It has to be. I don't know. There's too many variables. I can see it working, but I also can see it not working.
I'm really wondering if the biggest factor wouldn't be the style and the appearance of the phone, because the one that we saw, it had little blocks that you could plug in. But if you ask most people, they say, man, my Galaxy or my iPhone or whatever, it's sexy. I mean, it looks good, right? It's a nice looking phone.
Yeah.
And, just based on the fact that they even make cases that have portholes cut out so that you can see the Apple, so you can show the branding off. I think this is at least a factor that goes into that buying decision, because we could probably all afford, we could all buy cheaper phones that do the same thing, but they might not look as good. They might not be as comfortable to put in your pocket or hold in your hand. And even in some cases, people like to kind of have that brand name logo as well, which is a funny thing, because this is one of the things that I did want to talk to you about. And guys, if you asked a question on here in the chat, please repost them. It's moving a little fast right now. I'm trying to keep up, but also I only have Greg for like another 15 minutes. So I want to pick his brain while we have him on here. The notch on the iPhone 10. What is your take on that? Because they're already kind of talking about reducing that on the next model.
I think it's ugly. I think out of all the companies last year that made phones with any kind of reduced bezel, I think that Samsung did it the best from what I can remember. And then a lot of companies followed suit, like the OnePlus 5T looks kind of similar. The Pixel, somewhat similar. I mean, not, but that kind of like, a little bit bezel at the top, a little bezel at the bottom. I think that's the good look. Again, I don't like the way that Samsung did it. I think, the Essential phone, the one that has like a little teardrop?
Yeah.
For the kid. That one's not too bad. I still don't love it. Samsung, the latest rumor from Samsung is that they're going to put holes in the screen, so there'll be no bezel at all on either on the Note 9 or next year's S phone. There'll just be holes in the screen for the sensors, again with no bezel. Yeah, that would be interesting. I don't even know if that would look good or not either.
I suppose it's all just a matter of personal preference. I'm okay with having a stripe at the top if it's big enough for the front-facing camera. And I think that they made a good decision in allowing people to deactivate that feature, because to me it looks silly. And yet at the same time, as Apple is known to do, they're kind of pushing that as, well, now people can recognize that you have an iPhone 10. You see that notch and you go, oh, I've got an iPhone 10.
It's iconic. It's definitely iconic. The other thing after playing with the iPhone 10 that kind of it was not that I used the iPhone 10 long, but one of the things that I kind of like, kind of don't, but was when you go home, you swipe up. And I would do that on when I went back to my Android full time, I would do that. And that's not how you go home. You have to literally hit that home button. So that was one thing I wish is kind of off topic, but that's one thing I wouldn't mind seeing Android do would be to go home to flick up rather than tap the home button. I wouldn't mind that. I don't think.
Yeah. And I'm sure it's easy enough to do, right?
I mean, you could probably do. I'm pretty sure you could do it now with Nova Launcher. So I doubt it's impossible to do right now. But just in a general sense, to get rid of the home button, or if they wanted to get rid of those buttons at the bottom to do more gesture based.
Yeah. Okay, so I think I only had one more question that I wanted to pose to you, and then we'll just go back to the chat. And like I told you, it's like an hour flies by so fast here. Everyone, be sure to check out Gregg's channel. I think he's just got some cool stuff to contribute. And I went on there today. I watched 2 videos, and I felt like I was more up to date, than I was before. Obviously, there's a lot of new stuff happening all the time. And let's talk about the Galaxy S9 real quick and what we think we can expect to see from that. You talked about it briefly. I watched the video, but not everyone probably has yet. So what do you think is going to be most remarkable about this new model?
Most remarkable? I don't know if there will be anything. I think it's hard for Samsung to trump themselves every single year because their phones have generally the most features of any phone on the market. And it's at this point, I think with any phone manufacturer, we're at the point where you get a better camera slightly, you get a faster processor, maybe you get some more RAM, the software is updated to the latest Android or whatever. And that's basically it. There's really not a lot they can do. I think they do need to update the cameras. That's one, even though the camera was really nice on the Note 8, it still was slightly behind, at least I feel like, in areas of where the Pixel superseded it. So I think that this is the phone and this is the year they really need to upgrade the camera sensors beyond what they've done in the last 2 or 3 years, because we're more or less using the same camera sensor as the S7. And that's now you're at the, S8, S9 now. And the S9 definitely will have a newer camera sensor with improved slow motion, super slow motion up to possibly 1,000 frames per second. So I think this year they're going to sell the camera because I think that was what a lot of people picked the Pixel for, was because of the camera. And that's what I think the females love, a phone that has a good camera. So it's a good seller for females. If you say, hey, this phone has one of the best or the best cameras. And then other than that, I can't imagine them adding anything revolutionary that's going to blow us away that wasn't in last year's phone.
Front-facing camera too, right? That is,
yeah, of course, everything. Yeah, I mean, if you like I said, I think females are underappreciated part of the market when especially on the Android side. I think when they make cell phones, I think Apple thinks of females and males when they make phones. Sometimes I don't think Android thinks of it that way, and I think if they put more of that marketing into females, we will start getting, because I consider myself an Android guy, we will start getting more females on the Android side and possibly, increase market share and chip away at what Apple has. And this totally goes against fanboyism because I know you don't want that. You want everyone to be in love. But I kind of like that there's, like people root for Samsung, people root for Apple. And I think that creates controversy, and controversy creates viewership and to something to talk about. Because if everyone just said, hey, I love my phone and you love your phone, let's be friends, you wouldn't have people watching your channel or my channel or any other channel, because people like to fight about what they love. And I think and it's fun. I think it's fun as long as it doesn't get too nasty. But yeah, otherwise it's fun.
Yeah, I agree. And it's funny. And hey, man, this is just my take on it. Obviously, like you said, one of the things about having the whole Apple versus Android deal is, man, it generates comments, it generates views, it generates traffic, it generates all sorts of stuff. And let's face it, man, as humans, we are very tribal. So we pick a team and we stick with that team and we're loyal and we say we've been there from day one. So, hey, I'm with all that. And to me, that's fine. I, at the same time, would love to see my point was, let's get the manufacturers to cater to us. That was really what I'm after, you know?
Yeah. And I agree with that. I think if companies went more for, you know, let's send out a survey or let's put a tweet out and see what you guys say you want in a cell phone, and let's make that cell phone. I think you would see cell phones that, like, I think a company like OnePlus, they're a company that could possibly do something like that. Put, 50 things on this survey, which 10 of these things have to be in the cell phone. And I think they would create a phone that, would be the ultimate phone that everybody wants: a headphone jack, waterproof, water resistance, fast wireless charging. What are some other things? I'm trying to think, like curved display. There's things that people want that aren't in some phones. Like, you're right, a headphone jack's dying, or like the Pixel phone doesn't have wireless charging. There's all kinds of things that if they just did one or two things, it would be the ultimate phone. And there's not an ultimate phone. So it would be cool for a company to actually do what everybody asked them to do, and make it.
Yeah. Well, like you said, they're kind of running out of new features, right? It's improve the processor, improve the camera. And outside of that, I think improve the battery. That's just my
battery life. Yes. Huge. Yes. I don't know if I mentioned that. I know you were starting to talk about it, but they have to improve. I already said it. Yeah. They have to improve battery life. We're still stuck in it's been the same battery life we've had for the last, 5 years. I mean, I feel like it has gotten better on Android, but since 5 years ago, but it's still a day's worth of use, and that's it.
Yeah. Well, that's the whole thing. It's typically, here's what this battery will deliver. So let's build a phone that is optimized to get through about 8 hours, because obviously if you want performance and you want features, it's going to take up battery power. Yeah. And I feel like they're not very conservative on that. It's like, here's 100% of the battery. Let's make this thing run so fast that you'll be able to get through 8 hours, and then you need to charge it. And that's kind of how, they seem to operate. Just to clarify real quick, Greg, when you said that Android caters less to females, which, across the board, I'm going to agree with you, especially in the early versions of all the phones that came out. But were you referring specifically to Samsung or Android in general?
I agree with you. Definitely in the early days, it was this phone's for a guy and nobody else. I do agree that the phones are sleeker and sexier, and they cater towards a more general population. I just feel like when you watch, though, like if you just generally watch like an Android commercial for a phone, and I still don't feel like they cater to females. I think it's like, if you think about, I don't know have you seen the Samsung commercial where they kind of make fun of Apple because the guy has the haircut that looks like the top of an iPhone?
No.
Yeah, it's funny, but I mean, like, females aren't going to be like, oh, cool, now I want a Samsung. That's a guy's going to be like, oh yeah, Samsung's cool, Apple's dumb. I just think that they sometimes don't cater to females with marketing, and sometimes with phone design, because think of how many, there's so many big phones too, and a lot of females, they like the smaller iPhones, the iPhone 7 and 6 and 5. Well, not 5 because 5 was small, but a lot of them chose that one over the bigger one, the Plus version. So there's a lot of, Samsung's lucky because they still do make a smaller phone with the S8, which is, it fits in your hand better. But I don't know. I'm reaching out to the females.
All right. Hey, good. Hey, so I want to run through a couple things real quick because we're getting close to the hour, and I really appreciate you coming on here. Everyone, again, this is Gregg from Greggles TV. You should check out his channel. I will actually add that link in the video description for anyone who watches this video later on, obviously. Also, Real World Review, you should check out his channel. We had him on here a few weeks ago, and I'm sure he'll be back in the near future. Goat D1 in the house, want to say hello. Hey man, we got to get you on here too, because we got some stories to tell for sure. I hope you got that voicemail I left you earlier today. Let's go through these comments here real quick. Someone had thrown this out. This is going to be hard to get into, but Greg, maybe you can talk a little more about it than I can. There was someone who made a comment about graphene. So you're familiar with these flexible displays that they're making, and they got this graphene display. What is this, actual phone? A cell phone with a flexible graphene touchscreen. So presumably probably what Samsung or LG will be doing in the future.
So if you're talking about foldable displays, then yeah, Samsung's coming out with They've already kind of announced it, a foldable display. It's been known as the Galaxy X. And it's supposed to be coming out either the very end of this year or early next year. It's probably early next year. And the technology is cool, but it's still not, hey, you can fold it up like a piece of paper. It's literally like a sandwich. It's almost like a flip phone. It's almost like a flip phone at that point, because that's the way it's going to fold. So it's not anything that's going to blow your mind. I still think that when the technology does get there, like in terms of like being able to fold it up as many times as you want, I think that's, who knows how long that's away.
Yeah, yeah, that's the thing. You know, they have this. I want to say it's ZTE or someone who has what they're called foldable phone, but it's actually just two displays.
Yeah, that
fold out together. And to me, having a bezel in the middle of two displays, that is not a foldable phone. You know, I mean, it's a bent. I don't know what you call it. Like it's a clamshell phone with two displays. Is all it is.
Yep.
If we have, like you mentioned, one single screen, one solid piece of paper that you fold in half, put in your pocket, or, you know, fold out to be a tablet, I'm good with that. But I don't think having borders between different display modules is going to do it for most people.
For sure.
Let's see. And skip the Note 8. That was weird. Waiting on the Note 9. I think Samsung is milking it. We won't see graphene batteries until Note 10. Okay. I'll check them out. Phil. See, we should never have to wait on phones. They should just come up with what we want. Yeah, that's true. They should. They're making plenty of money. I should be sleeping. I have school tomorrow. Hey, Everything Tech, thanks for coming on, and everyone else who had to stay up late to do this. I know we have people from different parts of the world, so for everyone who shows up, I really do appreciate it. Kyocera Echo did a foldable phone years ago, and no one cared. Yeah, Kyocera is going to have a hard time selling anything, I think, too. And again, it all comes down to this. We've got two brands that have so much market share that, you know, we literally have people come into the store and say, should I buy an iPhone or an Android? And I say an Android, and they're like, they are thinking of Samsung. They say Android, thinking Samsung, and they use the two words interchangeably. Samsung is Android, you know, for a huge part of the population. And that's unfortunate because, you know, the whole thing, I love the idea of Android. See, I just did it. I love the idea of Android and being able to have, you know, anyone can make an app and you don't have to deal with the App Store thing. You know, I'm willing to trade freedom for security when it comes to phones. I'm totally fine with that. You know, the great thing about Apple, obviously, it's solid. Their operating system, everything that goes on there is vetted and so forth. But I like a little more freedom on mine. That's why I've always been a fan of jailbreaking. Just my personal preference. Let's see. Did you ever do a battery swap or software revival on a Note 7? I haven't personally, but I did send a Note 7 in just recently that was broken more than a year after the recall took place, and I just got an email saying that they're sending out my check. So you can still send your Galaxy Note 7 in, even if the display is destroyed, and they will give you the full retail value. If you know, so if you're holding on to it, I probably
it's like a government bond.
Yeah, I've got people. It is exactly. I mean, it's not appreciating, I don't think, but I've got people that are like, yeah, I'm gonna hold on to this thing forever. Hey, man, at some point, get your $1,000 back, or 800 or whatever it was. Kyocera phones are durable. That's what I like about them. Yeah, Kyocera, they do. In fact, that they had something that was water resistant like a few years ago, and it's a solid phone, but they're gonna have to step up on the marketing, I think. What's your take on HTC? I'm going to answer that, but I want you to answer that first, Greg, because and by the way, you're welcome to stay as long as you want. I'll wrap this up pretty soon, but I don't want to make you feel like you're obligated.
What's my take on HTC?
Yes.
I had the HTC U11. I liked it. Did not like the brightness of the screen. It was very dim screen. I hate that about phones. The LG G6 was the same. It had a very dim display. But other than that, I really liked the HTC U11. It's really quick. One of the fastest, if not the fastest phone I used all year. It was just smooth. The only other issue I had with the phone was the camera app. The camera app was like, it's funny because like I told you, the phone was really, really fast. But when you get into the camera app, it would lag. They pushed the software update out and never fixed it. But other than that, decent camera, fast. I liked it. I think it was a decent phone.
HTC, if you ask someone from a technical, someone who works on phones, most of them will cuss the moment they hear HTC because they are not fun to repair. That, you know, that's the first thing that sticks out in my mind. Now, I will say this one, and everyone can laugh all they want, but I got to tell you, I was and still would be a fan of Windows phones. And this phone right here, if you want to talk about sexy phones, I always thought this HTC in their design from the outside, their phones looked amazing. I mean, they were just beautiful. I mean, the ergonomics and the form factor, they nailed it. They looked great. When it came to repairing them, they were a nightmare. You know, anything past the Sensation or the Inspire, anything from the HTC One M7 and up, including, what was the one that Johnny said he was using? Man, those phones, they're just difficult to work on. So as a technician, we kind of hated them. But I always loved the live tiles. I always loved the Windows interface. And it's one of the most solid phones I ever had was the Nokia 1020. But we all know, got to play that funeral tune right now. Windows is pretty much done. So I liked having the competition in the market, but as a technician, I did not like working on HTC in any way, shape, or form. After about 2015 or so, they really sucked. Let's see. HTC A9 looks amazing, but it looks like an iPhone 6, so that might be why. Yeah, is everything not looking like an iPhone 6 now? I'd love to see more diversity in the phone marketplace. Last phone was an M8. I hated it. It overheated. Oh, and by the way, Harvey, I wanted to say, I didn't even realize when you sent me the watch that you sent me the charging block for your Galaxy phone. So I still need to test that. But obviously, if it's dead, it's not going to do a lot of good. But I just realized I thought that was a charger for the watch when I got it. I thought it was a charging block for that. So just wanted to acknowledge that. All right, so it is 7:02. It is just about time to wrap it up. I'm going to leave the chat open for at least another 5 or 10 minutes. If anyone wants to post questions, feel free to do so. Make sure that you check out Gregg's channel. Gregg, I want to say thanks to you for taking an hour out of your day. I know time is money. I know you have things to do. And
I got
things
videos to make, Mike.
What's that?
I have videos to make.
You have videos to make. You have research to do. And believe me, as a YouTuber, I know what goes into creating those videos. So everyone, when you go watch his 5-minute video, he's probably got like 2 or 3 hours worth of editing and research and recording in there. So, but hey, this is the path we chose, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Thanks, Mike, for having me on. It was fun. I haven't been interviewed in a while. It's been a long time since I first started YouTube. So.
Hey, it's a blast, man. I love it. And in the future, if you consider coming back, let me know. And we'll definitely be doing more live streams for sure.
Awesome. I appreciate it, Mike. Thanks for having me on.
All right, good deal. All right, everyone, I'm going to put an image up here on the screen for your entertainment because I think it's freaking hilarious. You should definitely also check out this video of this guy who bit his battery. Yes, bit his battery. I am going to leave the chat open for a few minutes. So if you have questions or comments, by all means, feel free to leave them. We'll try to answer out. Shout out to everyone on Gregg's channel. Gregg, you're awesome, man. I hope to talk to you again in the future. And for everyone else, we'll be back on Monday at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and we have more guests coming very soon. So again, thanks for your participation, and I will talk to you soon.